Wanting to start a podcast, but you don't know what to buy or where to start or anything like that, well, you're in the right place. Maybe. I'm not an expert, but hopefully this video will help. What's going on, everyone? It's Alex Light with Sparky3. Hopefully you're having a phenomenal day, whatever day you are watching this video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than the norm here over at the channel. Here at Sparky3, I try to keep all these extra videos pretty in line to the themes of our podcast: gaming, anime, manga, sports, movies, etc. So this one is definitely kind of out of left field, but quite frankly, I get asked this question so much to the point where I was just like, let's just make a video about it. I feel like that'll probably be pretty beneficial to the people that, want to come over and hit me up and like ask questions about, as you see on the title, how to start a podcast. Everything that you need to know based on just general mindset, branding, equipment, software, and even where to go. All of that's going to be here in this video. Since this is not our normal sort of content here at Sparky3, I didn't want to break it up into those 4 different parts. It's just all going to be all in this video. A nice one-stop shop, if you would, for everything that you need to know podcasting. Everything will also be separated with timestamps down below. So there's only 1 or 2 things that you really need to know. Just go click the timestamp and just skip to that part. But hey, if you also want to watch the full video, I'd appreciate the shit out of you. I'd also appreciate if you hit the like button and subscribe if you already haven't. Now, let me stress this before we get into going in part by part. I am very self-aware of my position on the internet. I'm a realist. It's just who I am as a human being. At the time of this recording, I have 216 subscribers. Thank you to all 216 of you. You guys are absolutely fantastic. We love our community. We love, and we're looking forward to watching it continue to grow, especially as we get into live shows, the Terrible Football Show, and Game Static. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I understand that people could go somewhere else and get all the same information I'm going to give you, and probably better information, because like they have like a larger channel and they are very successful and they are a full-time content creator while I'm not. Some people would argue that, we are not successful while other channels are. I would argue that point in one extent. While we are not successful in terms of like we are not full-time content creators, we are successful in the terms of like we are successfully doing our shows. We are running this channel. We are posting multiple podcast episodes every single week. We are successful in that regard. And the reason why I feel like it is a little bit more inviting potentially to tune into this particular video and listen to my opinions is because I'm an everyday person, just like potentially you watching this. I'm working a full-time job Monday through Friday, just like you potentially are, or maybe you're working a part-time job or whatever the case is. Like I'm like you in that extent. I'm just working a normal job. I'm going to my job every single week doing it, and then just doing this in my free time. This is just my passion project, that I hope to become more later on. So I do have a lot of information that I can give. I mean, I've been doing this for over 2 years now, going on 3 years next year. So I've racked up quite a bit of information that I can definitely share with you here today. This video will be broken up into 4 different parts. Part 1 is like understanding the process, laying the groundwork and mindset, everything along those lines, branding, etc. Part 2 is all your equipment. Part 3 is your software. And part 4 is where to go, where to post your podcast, etc. Again, if you only need 1 or 2 things out of this, skip to the timestamp. I'm going to try to break it up as accurately as I can based on what I feel like people would probably want to talk about and will hear about necessarily. But if you could, definitely subscribe to the channel. Be a friend, tell a friend. I'd definitely appreciate that. Check us out on our website as well, sparky3.com. You can sign up for free or sign up $5 a month. Videos like these are always available for early access over at the website. As well as go check out some Rogue Energy. We are sponsored by Rogue. The referral link down in the description below. Promo code Sparky3 for 10% off. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into part 1, branding, understanding the process, and laying the groundwork. Let's jump into it. Okay, so part 1, you got to start here. Don't even think about equipment. Don't think about software. Don't think about where to go until you hit everything in part 1, because this is where it's going to make or break you. Part 1 of, like I've already just said, understanding the process, laying the groundwork, branding. That's all going to be here in part 1. So let's start with branding. Okay, you're wanting to start a podcast, whether if you're doing this casually or with the intention of it going somewhere. If you're wanting to do a podcast very casually, I would say a decent amount of this portion of part 1 you can probably skip and go ahead and go to equipment. But if you're wanting to try to take this to the next level, you want to try to be pretty serious about it. I definitely, if anything in this video, listen to part 1, please. It is like the most important part. Okay, branding. Figuring out your brand, figuring out like basically what your podcast is going to be called, figure out if you want to have it under a larger brand, so your podcast under an umbrella, kind of like what we have for Sparky3. Sparky3 is the brand, Game Static, Anime Plus, Terrible Football Show, talking about movies and stuff, Spark Bark, all under that Sparky 3 umbrella, as well as some other projects that I can't announce just yet, but they are coming. You know, you need to figure out exactly how you want to go about that, is figure out the branding, okay? Once you figure out the branding, then you can start kind of really getting the ball rolling. Now, when it comes to figuring out the branding, there's a few things to keep in mind. You know, you want to keep in mind like searchability options, like is it going to be easier to search? Is it going to be, you know, a pain in the ass for someone to search, stuff like that, which is one reason why I actually go by Alex Light. Alex Light is just for simple, you know, for search purposes, because I have one of those last names that if I say it, you probably can't spell it. And if I spell it, you probably can't say it. So just looking up Alex Light makes things a lot easier. Boom, there you go. Now, when it comes to the branding, there's a few different things to keep in mind. Does your name, does your brand, like, does it truly represent what you are going to do? Does it represent what you are? That is a big thing to keep in mind. Sparky 3, spark entertainment and excitement every day. That is our branding, and that is something that we still haven't even hit yet. The ultimate goal is to hit that everyday portion where we are hitting entertainment content like every single day. That is the long-term goal for Sparky 3. So does your brand represent where you are trying to go? With this as well, one big thing to keep in mind, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to not get it right the first try, because I'm a great example of that. We have, like, I don't think we have besides like talking about movies and stuff and Spark Bark, since they're still so new, we haven't had a single show or even our brand hit the name on the first try. We just haven't, okay? Sparky 3 was originally known as Legacy Media Company. Obviously changed that. We are who we are now. Animan Plus. That one we hit pretty well. Animan, I feel like, is a really dope name. It's just straight to the point. It's if you watch anime and manga, you can read Animan and see our graphics and be like, oh, that's anime manga podcast. Dope. Animan was the original podcast. That podcast flopped terribly because of how badly we approached doing that show. Literally the first like 5 minutes into the first episode, we completely spoiled the shit out of like the end of Demon Slayer manga. And like the first season of Demon Slayer was the only thing out at the time. Bad approach to running a podcast. Don't do that. Which then caused us to rebrand Animan Plus, because we didn't want to drop the Animan name, but we knew we had to start over. Our, you know, that RSS feed, which is pretty much dead in the water. Terrible Football Show, which I still think is the best branding that we have at Sparky 3, because it opens up just for mistakes and it cause it to be kind of comedic. That original name was called Gridiron Mania. And then GameStatic, if you follow that show, GameStatic's the third version of that name, which is one of my best examples of don't be afraid to fail and make sure that your brand represents what you are trying to do. Because our original name was called Lighthearted. I'm gonna put the logo on the screen, hopefully. I think it's a decent logo. It was always one of my favorites, but if you look at this logo and you look at that name and you don't read the description, do you know what that podcast is going to be about? Like, can you look at that and deduct that, okay, that's a video game podcast? Probably not. Then we changed to Lighthearted Gamers just as like a band-aid fix, because we didn't know what the long-term branding was going to be. Still didn't like the name, and now we have hit what I consider our gold flag of GameStatic, the name that we are completely sold on. Thankfully, right now, we feel very good about all the names for our podcast. We feel like they hit exactly what we want to do and keep it like a little, like let's say talk about movies and stuff and a terrible football show, keep it a little lighthearted sense, you know? But the bottom line is, don't be afraid to fail. If you come up with a pretty decent name and it just doesn't really fit with you later, don't be afraid to change it. It is kind of scary, yes, but make sure that you hit your branding and your naming to an extent where you feel completely whole and complete and just satisfied, and you completely rock with it, you vibe with it, whatever. Just don't be afraid of that. Accept that, just kind of laugh about it and keep it moving. You know, because we're a great example of that. We're in a position now where we like everything that we got, but we've definitely made our mistakes along the way. Now, what is the most important thing about a podcast? You know, because whenever people come to me and ask me like, hey, I want to start a podcast, what do I need? What do I need to get? That's always where the conversation starts, is what do I need to get? And I don't think that's a great way to start that conversation. I think the better way to start it is, what do I need to know? Because the most important thing about a podcast, number one, first and foremost, is you. You are the most important part. Podcast is, you know, like you're sitting here right now listening to me. Like, if I'm not entertaining, if I'm not providing good information, entertaining information, or whatever, you're just gonna click off. You're gonna go somewhere else. I mean, that's just how it is. And I'm still not great at this. I'm still learning how to do various things with videos and podcasts, etc. I'm not the funniest man on the planet. You know, I think I'm okay funny. You know, mid-range. You know, we're getting there. We're learning. But you're the most important part. If you can't carry the show, if you can't carry the podcast, it's gonna ultimately flop, because people aren't going to want to listen. They'll just go somewhere else. So you are the most important part. Number one, make sure that you can run the show. And it's okay to start a podcast and have what me and the boys call, pod fright, first time pod fright, like that happens all the time, where you're just mic shy. Happens all the time. Zach, my co-host, Animan Plus and Game Study, he is the only dude that I have worked with that has no previous podcast experience that was able to jump on a mic and just crush it. Just absolutely crush it. Animan Plus episode 3. Go back and check it out. That was his first episode on a podcast ever. Other than that, everyone that we've ever gotten on in a guest capacity or whatever, they've always been mic shy. They've always been shy of the mic and the cameras, whatever. It happens. And that's probably going to happen to you if you're going to be the host of the show going forward with the show. Like, you're going to potentially not really figure out for a little while how you want to do the show. If I go back and I listen to some of the first episodes of Lighthearted, I cringe out of my mind. Those episodes are so bad because we didn't know the direction of the show. Animan Plus as well. Those beginning episodes are so bad. Oh my God. Because we just didn't know what really the direction. And I'm sure the podcast that I'm putting out right now in 2022, I'm going to look back on it in 2 years and cringe out of my mind as well. That happens with all content creators. Just go ahead and accept it. It's going to happen to you too. It's just like looking at Facebook memories or something. You're going to look at shit that you posted in the past and cringe out of your damn mind. It's going to happen here. Go ahead and get it. Go ahead and accept that. It's going to take you time to figure out the flow of your show. It's going to take you time to figure out the direction of your show and how you want to go about it, etc. With that, you also need to kind of figure out if you really want a co-host, if you just want to do like a solo cast. Solo cast can be entertaining, but it really is going to come down to how you write it and how you approach that show. If you're going to have a co-host, do you just want one? Do you want two, etc.? And then, of course, back to one of the main points, figuring out your branding. What is your branding? What is your theme, your topic, whatever, etc. With that, one huge thing to keep in mind is when you're approaching branding. I understand the appeal of starting a podcast and it just be whatever interests you. Just hop on, talk about maybe video games one episode, talk about movies the next episode, talk about sports the next episode, talk about real IRL events the next episode, like mental health or, what's happening IRL, etc. I understand the appeal of that you want the podcast to focus on things that you like and just have an output for all of your interest, a creative outlet, whatever. I get that appeal. But if you are like me and you're just some random person wanting to start a podcast, you can do that, but just understand that is a long road ahead to reach success. Is it possible that you just immediately catch lightning in a bottle? Absolutely. 1000% possible. That's possible for everyone. But the chances for it are slim. So my suggestion, honestly, is to take a route like what we've done at Sparky 3, where we break up our interest in what we want to talk about into separate shows. Because if you have that all-in-one show, while it's easier for you to do, and it's, maybe what you really want to do, you're going to be hitting so many different audiences that it's going to be tough to retain a central audience besides the audience that you're building that's literally only there for you, which ultimately is the goal, is to build an audience that is really there for you and you alone. But as you try to build and grow, you're going to be pulling in all these different audiences. And, let's say you have someone who tuned into your show because it was video game related and they really liked that episode, but then like the next episode is sports and they have zero interest in sports, regardless of if they like you or not, they're not going to listen to the episode. You're pulling in so many different audiences and it's going to make it very challenging for you to try to grow. Because when it comes to growth, another thing to keep in mind is that podcasting is a long game. Okay, you need to accept that right now. Don't jump in and think that you're going to be able to make it in a year. Can you? Yes. Like I said, that is 100% possible to catch lightning in a bottle and grow very quickly. But you do need to understand that it's going to take time. I'm talking years. Like I said, we're 2.5 years into this thing. May of next year is going to be our 3-year anniversary of podcasting. It takes time, and you have to accept that, and you have to be patient with it, and just focus on being the best version of yourself. Focus on creating the best version of your show, and just have fun with it. Understand that it's just gonna take time. That's just podcasting, because with podcasting, It's a commitment for viewers. It's a commitment for your audience. You're talking, depending on what your show is. Let's just take mine, for example. Of all my shows average an hour. You're talking hour-long uploads that someone needs to sit down and listen to. Even if you divide it into timestamps, that's still going to be a commitment for someone to click on that video. Now, is there other ways to grow? Yes, 100%. And those other ways to grow, I'll sit here and shout them out, and we're not even good at doing them here at Sparky3 for just various reasons. It's a completely different conversation. You know, putting up clips on your YouTube channel or whatever, like, you know, 5 to 10 minute clips of a segment that was in there, you know, of whatever you talked about. TikTok, oh my God, use TikTok. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't use TikTok, but we have an official Sparky3 TikTok, but have not used it yet. But we do plan to, because we know it's going to help growth for the channel, and that's a way to help you grow as well. But also with the whole mindset of, you know, having all the different, you know, topics all into one podcast, is that you're going to get in a situation, if you're posting on YouTube, where the YouTube algorithm is going to potentially bury you. So when it comes to the whole, like, oh, maybe you attracted some video game fans with a couple episodes you did, and then the next episode you talked about like mental health, or you talked about, you know, whatever's going on IRL, then you're not going to pull in those same fans, and the video may get recommended and you get less views, and then it won't get recommended next time, because the YouTube algorithm is just like, okay, they really like this video from you, but they didn't like this one, so you suck, you fell off, sorry. That's the algorithm is just fucked. That's just the bottom line. And with that as well, the route that we're taking, it's not good for the YouTube algorithm either, because we have so many different things happening at the channel at one time that, like, one like episode of like Anime Plus can do really well, and then Game Static do very poor, and then next time the next episode won't get recommended. And, you know, really the main fix around that is to maybe post everything through like a website like we have with sparky3.com, or do multiple YouTube channels. But I will say I don't know if I would do multiple YouTube channels right out of the get-go. Start with one and figure out if this is what you want to do. Figure out if you feel comfortable doing it, and get to a comfortable position where you feel that you can manage doing those multiple channels. We have just now reached a point where I have dedicated channels for Game Static, Terrible Football Show, and Anime Plus. We haven't moved the show over there fully. I'm uploading on both right now to kind of just start getting some traction and building a subscriber count. But that is something to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to being in it for the long haul and understanding that, one unbelievably massive thing that you really need to understand as well is take every single victory, no matter how small it is, while still seeing the long-term goal, okay? And that goes for life as well. But for podcasting, especially right now, that is a massive thing. Because if you just strictly focus on the long-term goal, you're going to burn yourself out and quit. Up front, every victory that you get along the way, you take that damn victory. It doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter if you say it to someone else and they're just like, that's no big deal. No, it's a big deal to you, and that's what's important. Your long-term goal could be, I want, you know, 10,000 plus, 100,000 plus views on every podcast episode. I want X amount of subscribers or followers or whatever. That can be your goal. Cool. Keep that goal in mind. I want to be a full-time content creator. Awesome. Keep that goal in mind. But every victory along the way, you claim that victory and you take it. Because like when you start putting out a podcast, when you're like an everyday person like me, you know, when just maybe you and a buddy hit each other up like, hey, Jim, how are you? Hey, Bob, I'm doing well. How are you? Oh, I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking. Do you want to start a podcast? Sure, that sounds fantastic. Great. Let's start next week. All right, see you next week. In that situation, you're only going to be getting probably like 5 to 10 downloads. If you got a co-host, 2 of them are going to probably be you and your co-host. The other maybe next 6 is going to be family and friends of both you and your co-host. And then maybe you might get one random person that clicks on your podcast. That's what it's going to be for a while as you continue to grow. And that's fine. Accept that and just stick with it. Don't give up and keep going, okay? You know, if you have like an episode where you get 15 downloads in a month, or 15 downloads for a single episode, whatever, hey, good job. That is awesome. Love that. You get 15 views on episode. Love that. Celebrate that. Especially if it goes up. Like if last episode you had like 7, then you go to 15. If you go back to 12, whatever. Hey, you're still in double digit, right? That's a victory, okay? Then you go back up to maybe 17, 18. Cool. Celebrate that. Keep that in mind. Keep celebrating. You know, in terms of like downloads or views a month, because of like if you're posting on like a hosting website for your podcast, it breaks it down like downloads for your podcast every month. You know, if you hit 100 downloads in a month, great job. Celebrate that. If the next month you hit 150, hey, that's growth. That's 50 more than the previous month. Next month you hit 180. Hey, 30 more. You're growing. Good job. Next month, 200. Hey, it may only be 20 more, but hey, that's still more. You're still growing. Celebrate every single one of those victories. There was one guy who I hit the boys up, right? And I let them know that, hey, good job, guys. We're doing really well. Like we've hit, we've exceeded our monthly download count, for 4 months in a row, I think is what it was. And, it was only like, oh, we're only in like the hundreds for it or whatever. I don't remember. And one guy was just like, hey, that's cool and all, but like, wouldn't it be cool if we hit like 1,000 a month? It's just like, yeah, it would. That's the goal. You should know that's the goal. But take these small victories, because if you don't, you're just going to burn yourself out. I mean, that's just a fact. Like because you're going to be so focused on what you're not achieving, and you're not looking at what you are achieving. And you need to look at what you're achieving, or you're just going to end up burning yourself out. When it comes to this whole thing, when it comes to the branding and wanting to start the process and just understanding the mindset of what you're getting into when it comes to doing these shows, another way that I like to look at as well is actually from a quote from another content creator that I love to follow. I've been following for, God, I don't even know how many years now. And this quote was just literally in passing. Like I bet you anything, if you said this exact quote to that content creator, he would have no idea that he was the one that said it. It was just in passing, but it's something that's actually just stuck with me ever since, to the point where I actually have it print out and hung up on a wall right over here in front of me, just because it does motivate me. So the quote is, if you want it to be a career, treat it like a career. You are the employee and the boss at the same time. Work your ass off as an employee that wants a promotion. Make smart decisions of the direction of your business like a boss. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So that's just something that I like to live by, something that I like to keep in mind at all times. To help keep me going, just ultimately try to make the best decisions possible for the branding. As well as just making sure that we have fun, because that's what it's really about at the end of the day. It's just having fun and having a good time. All right, part 2, equipment, which if you skip directly here, because that's all you want to know, hey, how's it going? You missed a very important, motivational period with part 1 that you should definitely go back to. But if you don't need it, fine, whatever. Here's part 2 with equipment. Okay, so I will start with what we use, what we currently use. And I will also take a trip down memory lane and go through what we used to use. Zach, you better be watching, because you're the one that told me, hey man, you better bust out all of our old equipment and show them what we used to use. So I will go through everything that we use now. So starting off with the mic, because this would be the second most important thing of the podcast after you being the most important, because ultimately about a podcast, it's about audio. Like, yes, you're watching video of me right now, and the video looks pretty clean. I think it looks good. Good video, good camera, in my opinion. You can get away with a lower resolution camera. I mean, you can. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as your audio sounds good and you're entertaining, you're going to draw people to your podcast, even if it doesn't look great. So mic is the second most important thing. And people always ask me, like, hey, just looking for like a budget mic. This is my budget, like maybe 30, 40, 50 bucks. What can I get? And I'll make some recommendations, but I will always end it with, hey, if you can dish out some more money, I would bump it up. Simply because, like, this is your bread and butter. Like, we rocked with cheap mics for a very long time, and they work pretty well, and I will recommend it here in this video. But at the end of the day, I would say, hey, spend some money on a good mic. So the mics we use. Got an extra one right here. Yes. We use Rode Pod mics. These things are very heavy duty. They're $100 a pop. These things are absolutely awesome. You could clean knock someone out. There's like some WWE level shit of how you can just clean knock someone out. It is actually built with a built-in pop filter, which is pretty cool. Pop filter helps with the P's, pop, pop, pop. It works okay. I'm not the biggest fan. We bought pop filters for all of our mics instead, just to help give some extra clean audio. But man, these mics are absolutely insane. I love these things. We will definitely be using these for years to come. Now for the mixer, I've got the box down here. It's got a sticker on the front. So I tried to rip the sticker off. So our new mixer, I just got this recently. It just came out recently. We use the Rodecaster Pro 2. This thing is insane. Absolutely insane. Very expensive though. This thing is $700. I will not beat around the bush on that. Very expensive piece of tech, but it can do everything that you need it to do for a podcast. We were previously using the Rodecaster Pro 1, which I do have over here. If you know me in real life and you're watching this, do not hit me up asking to buy this thing, because number one, I didn't buy it. Shout out to Zach. He bought this for us at the time. And number two, we do have plans for this thing in the future, actually, even though we have Rodecaster Pro number 2. For headphones, we use Audio Technicas. Audio-Technica headphones, pretty solid. Really, you can use any kind of headphone that you want. That's one of the least amount of things I would worry about spending money on. The exact ones that we use is ATH M30X is the exact ones that we use. Again, I would not worry about as much spending money on that. I would focus more on a microphone, maybe a mixer, depending on what you want. A mixer is not necessary. Depending on your situation, it's really not. But it is very helpful for various ways where you can have like built-in sound effects, built-in music, for example. Like here, I'll play a couple things for you right now. So let's turn up the volume here. Music's playing. This is the Game Static intro. Turn that off. Anime Plus intro. Go over. Terrible Football Show intro. And then you can even have other things like
sound effects. Pitch Up, for example, comes built in on this.
Next up, we have Megaphone. Megaphone.
Got monster effects.
Large robot. Small robot. Got a sensor built in, stuff like that. So a mixer can be really cool, and like you don't have to get this. Like this $700 piece of equipment, you don't gotta buy. If you're wanting to start things off, you know, from scratch, and you want to start, I say start low. Okay. So our previous equipment. So where I started, where'd it go? I had a mic literally just there. Where did it go? Oh, it went behind the mixer. All right, so my original podcast that I started many moons ago, before 2020, okay, I had literally one piece of equipment to give you an example that you don't need much. And the one piece of equipment was a good mic, Blue Yeti. This thing actually no longer works, unfortunately. I actually had another friend who had the exact same mic, and it also did the same screw up on him as well. So I feel like maybe there's a lifespan in these things. Maybe if you buy a Blue Yeti right now or a Blue Yeti X, like a little bit upgraded version, I'm sure it'll be a lot different. This is pretty old. But this is actually all that I used for a podcast once upon a time. And that was including a guest in the room with me because it has different polar patterns, which I will talk about here in a moment about how to use these different polar patterns. Yeah, Blue Yeti mic. It was literally just me and whoever was with me. I did 10 episodes, 9 of those with just one other person. Maybe there might have been 2 episodes with 3 people, but I had at least one podcast that had 4 people all in a room using one single mic in the middle of the room. It's like this mic is pretty solid. I do have my beefs with it, which I will go over here very shortly. But just to give you an example, like you can start a podcast with very little equipment. But again, the very little equipment is like $120 mic. So I mean, if you're going to buy anything expensive, at least buy a mic that's expensive. Now, when we started all of the podcasting in 2020, all right, here we go. Trip down memory lane for Zach and the boys, maybe watching this video. Here's our original interface that we used. A Behringer interface, a Behringer UMC 404 HD. Has 4 different outputs for mics, different headphone inputs on the back as well. This thing's okay. I would definitely say don't go out and get this now. There are so many other better pieces of equipment, but I mean, it's not bad. We had to use a headphone amp as well, so we had to use both of these at the same time. Plug the headphone, I think the headphone output there on the front. Yeah, so the headphones output on the front there, plug it up into this at the top, and then plug all of our headphones in this and adjust sound that way. And then if we want to do phone calls, I had to find a lot of ways to try to do phone calls. We use this little thing called an iRig 2. It hooked up to my phone as well as hooked up to one of these ports in here. And that is how, and it sometimes worked great and it sometimes worked terribly. And we had like back-to-back episodes of where it just worked like shit. And that's what pushed Zach to buy the Rodecaster Pro for us, just because that can naturally do phone calls like just via Bluetooth and it works great. But a little trip down memory lane there. As for our microphone that we used to use, we used a Behringer as well. I think this is XM 8500. It's a nice sturdy little mic. It still works very well. I'll give you an example right now. I think the audio is still decent. I tested it before I started recording, and just to further clarify, let me get this away from me. And I'll even have this muted. I'll have my main mic muted. So this mic does work, and it does work well. We use this for a long time. We use this while still even using the Rodecaster Pro. This big old fancy thing here. This mic can work quite well for a lot of things, but the range for it, you really need to be up on it, or you're not going to be able to really hear it too much. That's kind of one of the main things. But the mic does work very well. And like I said, it is sturdy, and these things are very cheap. It's actually one of my recommendations here in this video if you want an XLR mic. and not a USB mic. This thing's only 25 bucks on Amazon. Very good mic. I would recommend it as a good entry point XLR mic. Let me get back to my main mic. All right, now that we've gone through our history of equipment in terms of like, you know, the mics and stuff. Well, I guess I can also go through camera. So I don't actually have our original camera, our original webcam. I don't know. I had like 4 or 5. I don't know where they went. It's like a Luca 4K webcam, but it's definitely not 4K at all. It's only 1080p, which let me stress, you don't need 4K. Don't even worry. If it says 4K, that's cool because it can so hit 1080p perfectly, and that's what I would aim for is a 4K camera, but don't stress about 4K resolution. You're going to want to run 1080p. But there's like a Luca webcam 4K, I think is what it's called on Amazon. I don't know. It's like 35 bucks, so that's a very good entry point camera if you want to start there. The other cameras that we actually still use today is called Desktech. These are 4K webcams as well. I actually love these little webcams. They're about anywhere from like $55 on sale every once in a while to like $75, but there's usually always like a 25% off coupon code on Amazon you can use. I actually love this little webcam. This webcam is actually really awesome. It's got a very wide field range as well. While that Luca one that I mentioned, it's very zoomed in. It is very, very zoomed in. I mean, on our old setup for me, like I had to get like a metal, like bendable, like cam mount, right? Put it at the edge of the desk and put it out as far as it can be, just to get a decent shot that wasn't like right up here to me. Meanwhile, even though the camera was here. So like it was like this one, it has a very wide range and it's a very zoomed out range, which can make for a pretty solid shot. And like I said, we still use this today. Like, you know, not my camera that I'm talking into now and what I'm talking to every podcast, but like I'll turn my camera like right over there. Like we still use these cameras today. You can't see those. Well, you can see one right there because the monitor's in the way. But yeah, we still use these cameras like to this day. Fix the camera. And the camera that I use that I just spent, I use an Obsbot Tiny 4K. This thing was 270 bucks and so cool. Love this camera. I think it has an unbelievable picture, in my opinion, from what I'm looking at right now. For what I do in the videos, it looks incredible. And it actually comes with a software where you can do a natural zoom in for it, which is super cool. You can do it on the fly. And you can also use the software to rotate the camera up and down like I just did, which again is super cool. This camera is legit, and I hope to get more down the line. Again, since they are at a higher price point, kind of waiting on that. I just wanted to get one to try it because it looked like it was going to have everything I need. It also has auto AI tracking as well. I have it turned off for me, but if you're in a position where you're going to be moving a lot, it can actually track you. So that's all the equipment that we use now. Like I said, the main thing to look for is a mic. That's the number one thing that I would seek out is a mic. Now, when it comes to your equipment, what do you need? Do you need a USB or XLR mic? That's really kind of up to you. It depends on your equipment situation. You know, if you have like a decent laptop or a computer or whatever, if you have a laptop, I would look strictly for like USB mics. I wouldn't go the extra route for XLR, because for XLR, you're going to want to have an actual like interface or a mixer. You don't want to use an XLR mic with an XLR to USB output. Just don't even waste your time with it. Go watch other videos. It sounds like complete crap. So if you have like a laptop only, like number one, hopefully it's a good laptop. If it's like an old shitty laptop, I would look at getting a new laptop or something before you start a podcast, or maybe look for an alternate route to start a podcast. Because really, you're going to need I just say if you have a computer, you're in good shape, or at least a good laptop. But really, XLR or USB is kind of up to you. XLR is what we use naturally. That's what this is here, is an XLR input into the mixer, and it's just going to ultimately usually deliver better audio quality. I mean, there are USB mics that can deliver some insane quality, and I'm not going to knock that at all. XLR is just more of like the professional level of stuff, and it's also important based on like, you know, what is in your environment. Another thing to understand the two different kinds of mics, being dynamic mics and condenser mics. Dynamic mics being better for like long, like loud, strong sounds, like live setting, for example, and condenser is better for more delicate sounds, high frequencies, like studio vocals or something like that. So naturally you would think, oh, okay, I need a condenser mic. Not necessarily. A lot of pod mics that are considered pod mics today are dynamic mics. This is a dynamic mic. Because I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, you want your audio to sound good and loud. You don't want it to sound quiet where someone has to turn their car up to max volume to even hear you. So condenser mic, I would usually steer away from. I like dynamic, but it really just depends on your situation and what you need. The other thing to understand, I already mentioned this, is polar patterns. So let's bust back out the Blue Yeti here. because this mic is actually really unique because it has 4 different polar patterns that you can use. Most mics has only got one polar pattern, which is cardioid. Cardioid is more so like solo, so it's how your mic is capturing your voice necessarily. There are other ones where it's like super cardioid, which is solo with some recording in front. So maybe if you're playing, some sort of music, or you want your typing on your keyboard, you picked out for whatever reason, etc. You're doing something in front of you that you want people to hear, whatever it is, that would be kind of the more thing there. Omnidirectional, there's also called figure 8, which is just bidirectional, as well as stereo. Stereo is more so a feature that I've noticed is more so just in the Blue Yeti, because like normally it's like there are the 5 polar patterns, and stereo I feel like is only in this one. So what do these polar patterns mean? Like I said, cardioid is more so picking up the voice like in front of you. Your mic is picking up directly in this general range. Supercardioid is in front and a little bit behind the mic as well. Omnidirectional is the room. So you set it to the omnidirectional setting on here, and this is how I captured 4 different people in a single room with the mic in a table in the middle of it, and it picked up everyone's audio fine because all portions of this mic is active at the same time. So that could be really handy depending on how many people you want on a podcast. Omnidirectional mic doesn't have to be Blue Yeti, but an omnidirectional mic is probably going to be the way to go. Figure 8 or bidirectional, this is picking up in front and picking up behind. And then, like I said, stereo is something more, I feel like, unique to just this one, where it's like picking up in front and it's also picking up left and right. So it's giving more of like the studio, like stereo sort of acoustic, where like someone can hear it in their headphones or in their car speakers or whatever from all directions as well. And then there's the wide cardioid as well, which is like a mix of omni as well as cardioid. But really, if you're I don't see a point in using that. Just use omnidirectional, in my opinion. But it's good to understand those different polar patterns depending on your situation. I would say 9 times out of 10, you're just, well, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you're just going to want cardioid, or you're going to want to have the option to do figure 8 or bidirectional if you only want one mic for 2 people. But if you're going to have like a room of people and only one mic, make sure your mic can do omnidirectional. So I know I just threw a lot of information at you, but the polar patterns is very important to notice, and you will notice it as shopping for mics that, oh, this map is a cardioid only. I mean, this mic is a cardioid only, and you'll be like, what the hell is that? Whatever, cool, let's go ahead and just buy it. And you won't even know what it is. So just make sure that you understand what those are for the situation that you're trying to do. Now let's actually get into mics. So we'll start with like budget USB mics and budget XLR mics. So XLR, I'll go ahead and do that one first, because XLR is straight up, if you're gonna do a budget mic, just go ahead and get this. I mean, the Behringer XM8500, if you're going XLR and you have like an XLR interface to run with it or whatever, just go ahead and get this. $25. And again, like you just heard it a minute ago, like this audio sounds very well. Like, I mean, I still think it works fine to this day. It's not as crisp as some other mics are going to be, but it still works great for $25. Still sturdy. Had that thing for years. It comes in a nice case and everything, so you feel like a professional. I would still recommend using that if you're going a budget XLR. For budget USBs, Razer Siren X is one that I would definitely look into. It's usually on sale for about $50. Razer Siren Mini, it's usually about $40, and that's actually one that I just bought recently for my guy Ricky over at A Terrible Football Show. Go listen to A Terrible Football Show. I think it's episode 32 was his first appearance on the show as a co-host, and he was using that mic. He sounds great, being over the computer with me. So if you have, so if you're going to be doing strictly stuff like over the computer, like a Siren Mini, in my opinion, from personal experience now, is pretty solid. There's Razer Siren V2X, a little bit better than the Siren X. That's usually on sale for about $80. HyperX SoloCast for $50. That's usually not bad, but I may avoid this one because I did notice that it seems to be on the sensitive side, where it can really pick up some extra volume of what's going on around you. And then of course there's the Blue Snowball, which that's just the goofy little snowball mic from Blue. I think they're stupid personally. I don't think they're great mics, but they're usually $40, so it's a good entry point. And then another entry point mic, budget mic that I came across that I thought was super interesting. I didn't look into how it sounded, but I want to shout it out. Audio Technica AT 2005. It's a USB or an XLR mic, which is super interesting to have those extra options of where you can use it for either one, depending on if you end up upgrading later. It's usually about $55, so that might be worth a look as well. I definitely recommend going and listening to some audio videos for it on YouTube to see how it sounds. Now, if you're going for like more mid-range, we'll start with USB mics. So like I said, Blue Yeti is one to think about. Blue Yeti X. Now, the one thing, Blue Yeti Nano as well. One thing that I would say to steer away from at least the Blue Yeti, unless it's changed, but to my understanding, it hasn't changed. Obviously, like I said, this mic can pick up a lot of insane volume, right? 4 people in a room, mic in the middle. Like, it makes, your first impression is like, wow, that is some great audio pickup. Yes, it is. But it's also like just such a stupidly sensitive mic, to the point that like it could literally pick up the sounds coming from your computer if you have it turned up too much. I'm not kidding. Be like, you'll hear like a constant little buzz, and that buzz is it picking up stuff from your computer. Like, I'm not joking. It's sensitive as hell. So that's something that I would definitely think about. And I personally would never use a Blue Yeti mic again, mostly because I am a Rode guy. I like my Rode, but it is still a decent mid-range mic, depending on what you're looking for. 90 to 130 bucks for the Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti Nano is like 80 to 100. Now, I will also say, just because I see people do this all the time, and I think it's really funny, if you end up getting a Blue Yeti, make sure you're talking into the mic at the front. Don't turn the mic like this and talk into the top. The top is not actually where you're supposed to talk into. It picks it up here. This mic, yes, it picks it up here in the front. It's not from the side. From the side, you may notice that this is going to sound a little bit less, right? This mic, you want it in the front. You don't want to turn it this way and talk directly into it. It's a little tidbit if you do go that way. Another mid-range kind of mic is Elgato Wave 3. This is one of the best streamer mics out there. It's about 150 bucks, and one that I would highly recommend from everything that I've seen on it. HyperX Quadcast X comes with its own little stock mount, which is pretty cool. 120 to 160. Rode NT USB Mini, I would definitely recommend that one. That one has a lot of great audio quality. That's about 100 bucks flat. And then Rode NT USB, that's 170. Honestly, the stuff that comes with that one, yeah, it comes with its own little pop filter and stand. It looks cool. It looks fancy. Honestly, you're better off saving 70 bucks and just getting the NT USB Mini, in my opinion. For XLR mics, obviously, Pod Mic, 100 bucks for this thing, and it's one of the best podcast mics on the market. Probably second or third best, if I had to guess. Like 100 bucks, like, this is a hell of a deal. If you can drop 100, I'd drop 100 on that. But again, it is XLR, so keep that in mind. The Rode Procaster as well, 170 to 190. I would still go Rode Pod Mic over the Procaster. Procaster is going to be more for a larger setting, in my opinion, more so than what the Pod Mic will be in a smaller setting. But one interesting thing to shout out for the Procaster is that it does actually come in a separate USB version. I didn't actually know that till earlier. Audio Technica AT 2040, 90 to 100 bucks. That one's a pretty solid mic from everything that I've heard about it as well. Audio Technica 2035 for 150 bucks. It's also one that I'd look into. Pretty solid audio quality there. And then lastly, the last like mid-range kind of mic is the Shure MV7X for 180. Shure is one of the top brands on the market as well. Rode may be one of the most notable brands because of the amount of equipment that they create. But Shure is one of the top brands on the market for mics. And the reason why, we're now jumping over to the high end, the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the mic that everyone is trying to reach, the Shure SM7B. This is $400 to $500. It is one of the best mics. It is the best mic on the market, and it's not close. After that, more high-end mics is like the Blue Baby Bottle for $400 or the Bluebird for $300. But look, if you're gonna spend over $200 on a mic, I would, honest to God, go ahead and pony up and just get the Shure SM7B. In my opinion, that's the mic that all the professionals use. Any professional podcast or shows that you listen to, it's probably going to be the Shure SM7B. I mean, you've probably seen this mic 100 times if you watch or listen to podcasts. But I would say definitely if you're starting out podcasting, go like a cheap end USB mic, or if you want to get a interface or a mixer, I would just say pony up and get the Rode Pod mic. I think it's an absolutely incredible mic, and I think you will be unbelievably impressed with it. Mixers though. So there's a few things to keep in mind with mixers. Number one, obviously you don't need it. You can run a USB mic and not use a mixer, and we'll get to the software on how to actually do the podcast themselves, but you don't need a mixer. A mixer can just enhance the experience of the podcast or make life easier for you in various ways, which is why even though we had the Rodecaster Pro, I got the Rodecaster Pro 2 because the extra features that's built into this thing. First off, this thing should be like $1,700, and it would still be a fair price for everything that's in this thing. And I'm not joking. This thing has so much in it that I haven't even begun to discover yet. It can make your life easier as well as just enhance the experience. The main thing is about making your life easier is a mixer can make your life easier in post, where there's less work for you to do. I have thankfully gotten to a point with this bad boy where like post is like literally just take the video and I'm done. Like just take the video, add in, fade out, fade in, and I'm pretty much done. Audio levels are good. There's not a lot of issues with audio. Everyone sounds good because I can adjust everything right here in front of me, and it has really good preamps, which is a big thing about mixers, is giving preamps that fit for your mic. So it can just make your life immensely easier. So for one input mixers, which that one input is just going to be for your one single XLR mic, Elgato Wave XLR is probably the #1 that I'd recommend. Elgato is like the most notable streaming brand of equipment out there. So even though you're doing podcasting, that, you know, and it says like, oh, it's for streamers. No, it works for you too. Don't worry. It has a nice dial to adjust your volume as needed. If you're going to have one single input and do everything over the computer, Elgato Wave XLR is the one that I would probably go ahead and buy for 160. You can also buy the Rode AI1 for about 125. That's one that actually Zach and John have both used when doing remote stuff before. We've run into some problems with it where it won't like register on the computer. I haven't had a chance to go over to either one of their houses and try to troubleshoot it. I need to do that soon, you know, see if it is actually a major issue or not. But when it was working, it literally sounded like they were in the studio. Like, I'm not kidding. They may have been on Discord or whatever, but they literally were like, it sounded like they were sitting right here with me. The audio was so crisp. 125 bucks, pretty good. And then some higher end for one input, which I would just say don't go with. But I still want to shout out is Go XLR. That's you know, not the mini, but the full. That's 500 bucks. That's more so if you're getting into streaming. So I'd avoid that one, as well as the Razer audio mixer for 250. That's another one that I'd probably avoid. I would, if you're going to go a one input, I would go Elgato Wave XLR for 160 or Rode AI1 for 125. But if you're looking for multiple outputs, you know, there are a few different ones to use. There's a couple by Zoom PodTrack P8. This is actually a very interesting piece of equipment because it has 6 XLR outputs, which is really cool. It's 450 bucks. It has 9 effect pads. There's the preamps on it are not the greatest, and I don't remember if it had multi-track recording, which multi-track recording is whenever I record into this mixer, every single effect, every single mic, I can pull their tracks separately and edit. So if like one single person is kind of quiet, I can pull their audio out and edit their audio up to fit everyone else. So that's the big bonus with multi-track, multi-track recording and editing, which is a big reason why I'm going to really push for you to either have a good audio software to record multi-track, or, you know, have a mixer to record multi-track, because it's going to make it a lot easier in post. But the Zoom PodTrack seems super interesting. I don't know. I did consider it there for a little while because of 6 XLR outputs. I also came across another piece of equipment called Zoom PodTrack P4, which is even a portable way to do your podcast. It has 4 XLR inputs, 4 headphone amps as well. You can run it off batteries, or you can plug it up to get power. It's a small little thing. You can have effects on it. It looks really neat to the point that I kind of want to get one myself for 200 bucks. But I thought it was pretty cool, especially since it has that portability option. And then there's another one that I came across as well called the Manoa caster. It's 200 bucks, but it only has 2 XLR outputs. If you're going to get like a multiple input caster, I would really look at still getting a Rodecaster Pro 2. And I know it's $700. It's a lot of money, but like, I wouldn't jump into this right away. Go something cheaper, and there are some other brands I'll shout out to go cheaper. But if you're maybe doing your podcast and you're a year or two in and you're really enjoying it, I would look at saving up for a Rodecaster Pro 2. Now, I know the question might be, Alex, should I save up and just save a little bit of money and get Rodecaster Pro? I would say no. If you can get it for really cheap, like if you can snag an extra one off a friend who maybe upgraded, again, don't hit me up. We have plans for this thing. You know, and get it for like 200, 300 bucks. Yeah, I'd probably do that. But I mean, that thing is 500 bucks normal price still. I wouldn't buy that. I'd go ahead and spend the extra 100 for this because you get so much more. Now, this is all a lot of money that I'm talking about. So if you want to go cheaper, look at brands like Tascam, Behringer, which was my interface as well, or Focusrite. Out of those 3, yes, I've used Behringer. I like Behringer mic. I've used Behringer Studio headphones as well. The headphones were okay. I had like 2 that crapped out on me, but they were okay in terms of, headphones isn't really that big of a deal. I'm going to be completely honest. But the interface itself, Behringer is more meant for music, but you can use it for podcasting. And because it's more meant for music, it can be a little annoying for podcasting. If you're going to use something here, I would maybe look at Focusrite. You can get like a Focusrite Scarlett Solo, I think is what it's called, for 100 bucks, and it's a single XLR input. Again, this is more so for music. All three of these brands are there. They do have pod features that you can utilize, but that's going to be on the cheaper end for stuff. And this is all, of course, if you wanted to go XLR, this is all stuff to look at. You can get a good USB mic and pretty much be good to go. You can get 2 USB mics and probably be pretty good to go. The mixer is just going to help further enhance your experience. I'm not going to say it's something you need to jump into right away. Maybe give it a year, see if the podcast stuff is for you, because it might not be, and then look at getting a mixer later on. Cameras. So I already shout out our camera that we still use, the Depth 4K webcam, $70 usually as a coupon. Definitely recommend that. The ObSpot Tiny 4K, what I'm using right now, definitely recommend that. The Loco webcam 4K, not 4K though, $35. That's an all right webcam. It's just, like I said, very zoomed in on your face, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, for $35, you can't really go wrong with it if you're willing to spend a little bit more money. Razer Cairo for 70 to 100. That's even built in with a light, which is pretty neat. Elgato Facecam for 170. That one's pretty solid. Logitech 4K Pro, 160. Logitech C922 Pro for 7200, or Logitech Bryro for 140 to 200. Really, depending on where you are in your content creation journey, if you're literally just starting, I would say just get just find some basic webcam like the Loca webcam 4K for $35. Just get that, run with it. It's going to work fine. And honestly, if you don't need your phone, use your phone. Your phone has, I mean, think about it. Our phones have unbelievable cameras in it. Our phone, my phone camera is better than the camera that I'm using right now. And that camera is like, $270 and a pretty solid cam. But if you don't need your phone during a podcast, you can also set it up where your phone is your camera as well. But $35, I feel like is a pretty good price for that webcam, and it'll get the job done. At the end of the day, webcam is going to probably be the third most important thing in a podcast. Like I said, number 1 is you, number 2 is mic. So I wouldn't worry too much about the camera. But if, like I said, if it does have that 4K branding, don't worry about using 4K resolution. Just know that the 4K branding will be able to perfectly capture 1080p for you, which is kind of the big thing. For headphones, like I said, whatever really works, but I will say go ahead and invest in an extension cable, because headphone cords unless you're gonna have shit literally right here with you. If you're gonna have a guest, like another part of the room, get an extension cable. The extension cable you're gonna want a 3.5 TRS to 1/4 TRS. And I will say one little tidbit that I've learned is when buying this extension, make sure that the 1/4 is a natural 1/4 and not a screw-on attachment. That is one big thing that I would definitely look into, is it's going to make your life immensely better when plugging into that. That's just something I've noticed when having extension cords that wasn't a natural input on the other end. So just a little tidbit there from my own personal experiences, because I've spent so much money on cords based on like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, this didn't work right. That didn't work. Just take my word for it. Make sure it has the natural default on that end and not a screw-on. The screw-on is not my biggest preference personally. The other things to look at is like foam panels. If you need to help reduce echo in your room, put foam panels up. You don't need that many. We've foam paneled the shed of a room before, but you really don't need that. As long as you hit like your corners, get some foam panels up, because that's where or like a wall in front of you, because your voice is going to be bouncing off that wall. I like to put it on the door as well, because I've noticed that helps quite a bit. You can still have the blue behind me. I like putting it on the door as well, so it doesn't like just bounce off that, or maybe get out into the rest of the house or wherever you are. But foam panels is definitely something I look into. You can get them for okay priced, but it's something I would 100% look at. And as well as look at like maybe getting, if you have like hardwood floors, like obviously clearly I do, I would also look at getting just a small area rug, because your voice is also going to be bouncing off the floor as well. So having, if you got a carpeted room, dope. My last house was carpeted, so it made it pretty solid for the audio quality. Every once in a while, I can still catch the echo. Being over here, even though I do have some area rugs here and there, we got pop filters and foam filters and whatever. That is a couple of tidbits, as well as lighting. If you need extra lighting, let's look up ring lights. I mean, they're like $20. You can get a ring light, and you're gonna be good to go. But that just depends on if you need the extra lighting or not. So I think that's everything for equipment. Everything on the top of my head, I showed off our mic stands. That's another thing, that you can either get a fancy mic stand like this where all the springs are put in. You can get a standing little stand like this, which is what I used the longest time and what I actually still really like. Or just get something like this. It's $20. It's not that bad. But I would also pay attention to what your mic stand can hold, because like pod mics, for example, these things are very heavy for a mic. So you're going to want to make sure it can hold the mic properly. And if you're getting like a Blue Yeti is also a pretty heavy mic. So usually when they advertise like basic basic things like this, it will advertise, oh, it works for, you know, Blue Yeti. It can hold a Blue Yeti mic up. And, you know, so that is something that I would keep in mind. See if I can screw this on here real quick. There we go. So just make sure that it can hold up the mic properly. That's what you're going to be basically want to be looking for. And it usually will advertise what kind of range of mics that it have. But like this like mic stand is like literally 25 bucks. So not that big of a deal. But really, when it comes to how you're going to be holding the mic, that's kind of up to you. Some mics come with a built-in stand like the Blue Yeti does. The Razer Siren does. Razer Siren Mini, Rode NT USB. That comes with its own little stand. Same thing with the Quad Solo Cast. It comes with a built-in stock mount. You know, it just really depends on what your situation is. If you need a boom arm as well, which that's essentially what these are. But if you need a boom arm with a stock mount to help prevent, you know, booms from being captured, like I don't necessarily have that because there's not a lot of booms that I have going on, but that's something else to keep. It just really depends on your setup and your situation on what you want to do. But that should be everything for equipment. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below, and I will try to answer them as I can. But I guess a quick run through. Just kind of shout some stuff out that, you know, if I gave you too many options and you're indecisive. For camera, get Despotech. If you're feeling a little fancy, 70 bucks, get the local webcam 4K. If you're looking for XLR mic on a budget, get the Behringer XM 8500. If you're looking for USB mics on a budget, I would get the Razer Siren Mini. If you're looking for mid-range mics for USB, I would probably get the Elgato Wave 3 for 150 or the Rode NT USB Mini. If you're looking for XLR mics on a budget, I would get the Rode Pod mic. If you're looking for mixers, I would say probably the Elgato Wave XLR or the Rode AI1, or go ahead and pony up for the big boy. There you go. There's quick recommendations for you just based on what you can afford. Headphones, like I said, don't matter. Do what you want. You can find really any sort of headphones that's going to work for that. But that's it for part 2. Let's go over to part 3, which is your software. What should you buy? What should you download? All right, now part 3, software. What should you buy? What should you download, etc. So starting off with what we use, very straightforward. I use everything Adobe. Me and Zach both split paying for all Adobe programs, which is $600 a year. Yes, that's a lot of money. No, we should not be spending that amount of money for it, but we do. Mostly because that is really what my experience is in. It's what I've been using for, God, over 10 years now is Adobe stuff. It's what I know. And there are some programs that I just can't go back on. I can be flexible with video. I can even be flexible with like photo editing and stuff like that. But like audio, like I really feel very comfortable with Audition, and I've tried going elsewhere and it doesn't work for me. So no, we should not be doing that. I don't recommend you do that either. Just don't steer away from it unless you really just want to spend the money, because they're fantastic programs. And then for all the video recording, I currently use Slobs, which is Streamlabs OBS. I would personally say don't use Streamlabs. I actually need to get around to migrating everything over just to regular OBS. Yes, they are two different things. They are not under the same company. I'm not going to dive into the whole Slobs controversy. You can go look that up yourself. But Slobs or OBS is definitely going to be the way to go. They're both free to download. One just looks nicer than the other, but they both work essentially the same. Just download OBS to capture all your video stuff. And then if you need full breakdown on how to work, like your sources and stuff like that, I would, if you really want me to be the one to show you, let me know in the comments below. I'm not going to show you in this video. There are other quicker videos to probably break down how to use OBS and set up your mic, your camera, your browser, your whatever, all your sources, and your output and everything like that. I will say, if output, while it's on my mind, if you're going to be doing video, make sure you set your output video, if you're going to be doing any live streaming, to 720. Do not do 1080 at all. Just don't. You can have your video be 1080 for your recording purposes, but for your output, for your viewers, what your viewers will see, do 720. Do not do 1080. 1080 is not good for small content creators and streaming. It's just not. It will constantly try to buffer because you don't have the option as a small streamer to have the auto function where it'll just fluctuate between multiple resolutions from 1080, 720, 480, back to 720, back to 1080, etc. It's going to pretty much cap at that one, and 1080 is going to be a lot tougher for people to pull in on their phone or browser consistently unless they have really good internet. So if you do an output of 1080, you're essentially eliminating a potential portion of your audience on mobile, for example, because they'll come on your podcast and see that it's just buffering, and like, well, fuck it, whatever. I wanted to see what this person was about. They look, concept looked cool, episode title it'll look cool, whatever. But I can't get the damn thing to load them out, and you just lost a viewer. So do 720, it's more reliable. Do 1080 for yourself. That's all in the output settings for slobs or OBS. Again, if you need to know where to find that, it's just really the settings gear, and you can find under output, and it'll say input and output, whatever, for the resolution. But if you need a better breakdown, let's go to another video, or comment below if you want me to detail OBS stuff. I'll detail what I personally know and use. But yeah, slobs and Adobe. That's literally all I use. I don't use anything else. So pretty straightforward. When it comes to Adobe, Photoshop, sometimes I've used Illustrator, sometimes I've used After Effects, Premiere Pro for all video, Audition for any audio. That's majority of what I use. I have multiple other programs that I dive into time and time again, but those are pretty much the main ones that I use. But I don't use those. They're very expensive. So when it comes to the video editing, some free stuff, just whatever works on your computer. Video editor, Windows Movie Maker essentially is what it used to be. That you can use that. You can use Move AV Video Editor Plus. That also seems to be free. I don't know if there is a catch to that, or like Apple iMovie if you have Mac. I think Apple iMovie is free on Mac. I'm not 100% sure. Mid-range pricing, Pinnacle Studio. Now, this is one that I have actually used way back in the day. And I actually don't mind Pinnacle, and it's one that I would actually use personally if I didn't have Adobe. So Pinnacle Studio Standard is like 30 to 60 bucks depending on a sale. Plus is 70 to 100 bucks depending on a sale. And Ultimate is 80 to 130. And this is all just buying the license outright. You have the program, you're good to go. Another one that I actually really, really like is DaVinci Resolve. You can get it's 295 bucks. You can download a free trial and try it out. It's 295 and you just buy it. You're done. I actually really, really like DaVinci Resolve. Before it came time to re-up for my Adobe subscription, right? Because we used Adobe our first year of podcasting because Adobe gave it to me on a stupidly discounted price. I got it for like, I think 250 bucks for the entire year. And normally it's 600. So I hit it up for that 1 year. And the plan was, we'll see where we are in a year in terms of podcasting. If we're staying on schedule and we're sticking to the show, then we'll look at potentially re-upping it for that full price. And it's ultimately what we've done since. But if we weren't going to re-up it, I was trying to find other programs to use, because the plan was I was never going to be without Photoshop, because you can get Photoshop for 10 bucks a month with the photography plan. So that's very, very good, or 120 bucks a year. So I definitely recommend that for any of your graphical stuff. So always the plan was to get Photoshop, and then what was going to be my audio program, what was going to be my video program. DaVinci Resolve was going to be the audio program I was going to buy. $295, you buy it, you're done. It's not a subscription, you're done, you buy it. And it's awesome. I love DaVinci Resolve when I used it, and it's 100% what I will go to if I ever get rid of Adobe. Now, more expensive stuff, like I said, Adobe Premiere Pro, you can get Adobe subscriptions, one program only, but the problem is that Adobe's really weird with it, and you can't stack that on a single account. So if I get on Adobe and I try to buy Photoshop photography plan, that's all I can buy. I can't get photography plan and then Audition, because a single app is $21 a month, or I don't think there is actually a yearly fee for those individual apps now I think about it. So you can get an individual app for like 21 bucks a month, whether it be Audition or Premiere Pro or whatever. But you can't stack that, which I think is so weird, because I feel like they could make a pretty decent amount of money from people that only want those couple programs, versus having everything, because they'll have so many programs they won't use. So that's kind of, so if you really is dead set on one Adobe program, you can get that one Adobe program and then get other stuff. For me, it was going to be like Photoshop for sure. DaVinci Resolve was going to be my alternate, and what was going to be my alternate audio program. And that's what I couldn't really figure out. The last expensive video program, of course, is Apple Final Cut Pro. Pretty much in the major YouTubing industry, it's Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. That's what people are using most of the time. But now audio. So I personally could not find an audio program that I liked like Audition. Audition is the creme de la creme to me, the top of the top, nothing compares. I love Audition to death. I have some beefs with it here and there, but I absolutely love the program. I think it's great. Audacity, completely free. I'm sure you've heard of that one, so you definitely try that. Reaper is pretty cheap, 60 bucks discounted, 225 commercial license, and it's pay and you're done. Reaper was probably going to be the one that I was going to go with, but I wasn't the big fan of it. compared to Adobe Audition. For Apple GarageBand, that is mostly made for music, but you can still make it work. And then Logic Pro, of course, it's $200 that you pay for it and you're done. That's the more expensive end. There's also another set of programs that I came across recently called Restream. It's $41 a month or $4.90 yearly, and it's pretty much everything that you would need as a content creator. So that's why you save a little bit of money on Restream versus Adobe, because Adobe has like so many other things that I don't personally need, like Dreamweaver, which is made to create websites, and there's a few others as well. But Restream, to my understanding, seems to be very clear cut as like graphic stuff, audio, and video. So it's very straightforward, like content creator friendly. So I haven't personally used it, can't recommend it, but I wanted to shout it out. And then, like I said, graphics, just get Photoshop. Get Photoshop if you're willing to learn how to use it. There's so much to Photoshop that you can learn to help make your graphics. If you're not very talented at that and you don't want to learn, just go through Fiverr and try to hire someone. You can hire someone for pretty cheap. If you're watching this and you happen to know me IRL or we have a mutual friend, do not hit me up for any graphics. I'm too busy doing everything else. I'm sorry. A year or two ago, I probably would have been willing to help you out and make something. I'm sorry, I'm busy. No chance. Go to Fiverr, hire someone to get some graphics done for whatever your pod logo is going to be, etc. And that's pretty much it for part 3 in terms of software. Like I said, use Slobs or OBS. Just use OBS. Slobs kind of scumbags. I'll let you go read about how they're scumbags, but just use OBS to capture all your video. I like using Discord for all the actual video calls. You can use Zoom. You can use Skype. Skype is a prehistoric age at this point, and Zoom, I know it's what businesses use for the most part. I'm not a fan of it though. I'm generally not. I mean, I think the server for it stinks. The few times I've tried to use Zoom, it's been very crappy. Discord, in my opinion, is the way to go. I mean, it's completely free unless you want to get Discord Nitro, which can help you in a few different capacities. But Discord is, in my opinion, the way to go. Just make a server, make a server, and have different channels that people can hop into and do the call, and then you can capture it via a source in OBS, and you can just do it that way. I mean, and it doesn't matter if you're not a gamer. Because I know when you see Discord, it's like, oh, that's a gamer thing. Like, it didn't matter if you're not a gamer. Just go ahead and download it. Learn how it works, man. Discord is awesome, and Discord has actually been making a lot of moves on being more business-friendly as well to compete with the Microsoft Teams, to compete with Zoom, etc. So just check out Discord. They are incredible. I cannot sing enough praise to Discord. So that's what we use for software. And lastly, part 4, hosting, posting, everything of the sort. Where to put your show. Okay, few different ways to go about this. So if you're on a budget, Anchor is a way to go. Anchor is a hosting service that is for free. It's by Spotify, which is a good thing because you can get on Spotify, which if you're looking for the audio format of things is the #1 place for podcasts. You can also get it from Anchor over to Apple as well. I believe it's all manual though. You have to do everything yourself. Which is kind of, it's free. So, I mean, what do you expect? Another free one to look at is Castbox. That's actually where we started once upon a time. That is free to get your podcast on there, but the downside is it's only on Castbox. It's not anywhere else, and Castbox is on the lower end of notable, not lower, mid-range in terms of nobility of podcast sites. I mean, really, if you're going to be doing podcasts, you want to make sure that you're on Spotify and Apple or iTunes, whichever one you want to call it in the moment. That's where you want your podcast. Like, we advertise that we're on multiple platforms because we are. We're on Amazon. We're on, Google. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Pandora Radio. We're on a website called Deezer. We're on Castro. Stitcher, I think, is one. I don't even know how many we're on. We're on like 20 plus for all of our podcasts. But, I mean, really, you want Spotify. You want Apple. That's all you really need and want. And then, of course, just YouTube. Post to YouTube. That's a very easy way. We already kind of went over your branding aspect of things, whether if you're going to have you need to have multiple YouTube channels, which I wouldn't recommend starting off. Start with one channel, see how you like doing the show itself. See, don't overload yourself right out of the gates while you're trying to figure out if this is what you really want to do. But YouTube is going to be an easy way to put, to put stuff on there, put your show out there. If you're willing to pay for it in terms of this is more audio only, if you're willing to pay for it, Transistor is who we use, transistor.fm. It is $19 a month or $100 yearly. And that, is an easy one-stop way to get your podcast on all platforms, which is what is the big bonus for paying for a hosting service, is they are there to help you, to help distribute. You can get mailing lists. They give you a pre-generated website you can use, which is not a fancy website, but it's still a website so you can go to. gamestatic.transistor, whatever I don't even know what our website is. It's active, but obviously we don't use it anymore since we have our own website. Captivate's another one that I've come across. It's $19 a month as well. And this is all also for the lowest tier of subscription. You don't need the higher tiers. It's only if you really, because I mean, the higher tiers are based on like downloads that you get and stuff. So $19 a month for both these. Captivate's or $204 yearly. Kind of curious on that. A little bit of a price jump within the same price monthly, but those two being kind of the more notable mid-range ones. Buzzsprout's another one that people use. Avoid Buzzsprout in my opinion because the ranges on price depend on the hours you can post a month, which I'm not a fan of. So it's like either free to $24 a month, depending on how many hours you're posting in terms of total podcast links. And that's the same thing for SoundCloud. I wouldn't go to SoundCloud either because they're the same concept. You can only post so many hours a month. So that's kind of a pain in the ass. We posted to SoundCloud at first, and we actually had to stop just because our shows are too long and we couldn't post anymore. So if you're willing to pay for it, Transistor is my preferred. I love Transistor. I love all the features they have for it, for like auto tweeting, a pre-generated website, which is good if you're starting off, easy distribution. You can do multiple shows. You can, it has great breakdowns for your downloads, like where people are downloading it, like based on platform or desktop or whatever. Based on where they're downloading it around the world, like how many countries are you hitting, states are you hitting, percentages for all that. And there's so many other factors for Transistor that is awesome. So if you're willing to pay for it, Transistor is my way to go. But if you're trying to go free, probably just do Anchor, honestly. Just make sure that you're on Spotify is really the main thing, and then just do YouTube. That's probably the most best way, in my opinion, to really kind of get your podcast out there. For YouTube, one thing to keep in mind is just how YouTube works in terms of like your branding. Back to the branding stuff again. Is we always advertise. Oh yeah, right here at youtube.com/Sparky3. That's because we've reached a point where we can do that. You starting off, you won't be able to do that. You have to pass so many months of age for your channel. I think it's like 3 months of how old your channel needs to be, and you need to pass 100 subscribers. Once you pass 100 subscribers, you can get a custom URL. So before then, you're going to be youtube.com/90 characters, whatever it's going to be. So it makes it kind of tough where you just have to tell people, oh yeah, just go to YouTube and search up this. And it could make it kind of challenging, especially if you don't have like a hyper unique name. They could have to, really scroll through some shit to even try to find you, because I know there for a little while, for Sparky3, if you typed in Sparky3, this is before we had our URL, and the first result it'd pop up would probably be the video game Project Spark presentation at E3 like 2013. Project Spark was a video game where you could make video games. I actually had that game. The game was awesome. But now that we've done so many episodes and so many uploads, and we're growing in subscriber count, if you search Sparky3, you should find Sparky3. So that's just something to keep in mind, and just how there's not really anything you can do about that. It is what it is. You're just gonna have to grind it out, and you'll get there when you get there, sort of thing. But just, kind of be aware that in terms of like general, like trying marketing that you're trying to do, it could be a little tough. But bottom line though, if you're going for budget, go Anchor just so you can get on Spotify, or just, start building on YouTube. I will say if you're going to do any live streaming stuff, I would still do YouTube. I wouldn't go to Twitch. The one plus side for you for Twitch is that you can immediately start off with your own URL where you can say, go to twitch.tv/Sparky3 or twitch.tv/GameStatic or whatever. So you can immediately have that marketing right out of the gate, which could be really handy for you. But Twitch, while it is possible to be successful for a podcast over at Twitch, it's not the platform. You know what I mean? Like it's YouTube. YouTube is the platform for that. Twitch, as of right now, even with some interesting changes they've made for partners and stuff, so I give it a few years and YouTube will overall be the best place for streaming, in my opinion, if you're a video game streamer or whatever. But right now, if you're doing like shows and stuff for streaming, I still think YouTube is the best place to start. Go ahead and start now. Go ahead and bite that bullet of having to build yourself up, and where you can get your custom URL. I wouldn't let that custom URL entice you too much over at Twitch. Now, if you do want to try to set stuff up where you're streaming to both at the same time, you can do that. Go for it. There are ways to do that where you can stream to Twitch and YouTube at the exact same time. So you can do that if you want, but I would just focus on YouTube. YouTube is going to be the place to grow, at least as it stands right now. If you're doing a show, it is the #1 platform. So that's my own personal recommendation on that. So one more thing that I want to shout out in the part 4 portion of this video that I realized when I was sitting here editing and getting this video ready is if you wanted to look at maybe getting a website for you. I mean, this is still something that I wouldn't jump into right away. You know, let's start building your audience first. Let's start growing first before you immediately jump into a website. But the one place that I would go is who we use called triserial.com. I think that's the name of the URL. Triserial is the name of the company. I'll have them linked down in the description below. That's who we like to use. That's where Sparky 3 comes from. They are fantastic to work with. They will build the website for you essentially. You'll get on a call with one of the guys over at Triserial, and you'll basically kind of talk to them about what you want, what you're kind of looking for, to determine if Triserial is kind of right for you. Where you can kind of really control the content. They'll walk you through all of the different options for posting and everything of the sort. You can get people to sign up to your website for free or for X amount of dollars to support you. And then that you set up different like posting options and everything like that based on members or paid members or whatever. Set different posts. The videos themselves, they will be pulled straight from YouTube. It's not like you upload to the website directly, so you will still need to be running on YouTube as well. But website is definitely a good way to go. We pay $9 a month for the website, and I mean that's fine. What's that? One less fast food meal potentially that I don't need anyway. So it's not that bad for the custom URL. Depending on the name of your brand, it will depend on how much it's going to cost, and depending on what you want, like a .gg or .this or .that, whatever, all range in price. .com is usually the more expensive ones, but since Sparky 3 is like kind of a unique name, we got Sparky3.com for a very, very good price. And you could probably get the same as well, whatever your branding is, so-and-so.com for X price a year. So-and-so.gg for X amount a year. It's really not that bad. I assure you, it's really not that bad. It's very, very cheap. I mean, it's just like, I'll tell you this, it's not triple digits, depending on the name of your brand, that is. So yeah, websites are definitely a good way to go, but that's something I don't know if you'd want to jump into right away. I mean, it could be. The website is a very handy tool, and it's really not that much. It's not as much as people might think to start a website, at least in my opinion. Same thing with the merch store. We use Spring for all of our merch, and that is basically free to start. We paid for the URL, sparky3shop.com, and after that, just getting the website set up is for free. It's not like we have a stock of any of our shirts or anything. The shirts will be printed as purchased. So merch store, same thing. It's really not hard to start. So those are just a couple things to kind of keep in mind here to close out part 4 and where to post. Okay, so one more thing that I just realized as I'm closing out the show, putting a nice bow on it and wrapping things up. As I was putting the outro music, that's when it dawned on me. Music. If you want music for your podcast, there's a few ways you can go about it. We use in audio. Our intro songs are always in every description. You can go to the website and check it out. It is $60 for a year for a membership, which that's not bad. I mean, essentially buying one less video game, for example. And that gets you access to literally everything. You can download everything, and pretty much every single song has multiple versions. So you have like a long version, a short version, medium version, logo version, etc., based on different forms of content that you're posting. So that's super handy. You can look them up on YouTube. Look up Infraction, I believe is the YouTube channel. Infraction in audio, whatever. There's a couple other content creators that do these songs as well. Songs are good. They have tracks in all different sorts of genre based on like situation or whatever. So I definitely recommend in audio. No copyright music. I mean, it's one of the biggest YouTube channels on the planet. You can definitely use them as well. If you're looking for more rock, OnLap is a band that I actually really like, and they're all no copyright, which is super cool. Like I just like listening to them in general. I think they're awesome. There's a few others that I like to listen to here and there, but those are the main 3 that I primarily use. But in audio being the number 1, I think in audio has songs for every situation. They have songs for every podcast, in my opinion. That's what we use for like all of our filler music on A Terrible Football Show, whatever. Is in audio. So that's my top recommendation are those for all your music needs. Well, that is all 4 parts. I think I covered everything. I had pretty much a list here in front of me the whole time. Hopefully I hit everything I wanted to hit, and I don't like post this later and be like, damn, I really should have said that. I would say my final kind of closing statements on this is just have fun. Be yourself. Be yourself, but like be like a different version of yourself in an extent. Still be you. Just be a showman. You know, that's all you got to do. You're putting on a show. That's what you got to keep in mind. You know, Alex and Alex Light are the same person, but two different people at the same time. Because when it's time to do a show, I'm putting on that persona, but that persona is still a reflective of my personality. I'm just being a little bit more loud about it, you know, putting on a show. That's all it is. But just have fun. Don't give up. Keep grinding. Hopefully this video did help you in some capacity. It was very long, and this is not the sort of videos I normally do here on the channel, but I do get asked this question quite a bit. So I figured this would be an easy way to answer the question for everyone that would potentially ask. And if the video does pretty well, maybe I'll do more of this later on. We'll see. I don't know. But yes, just have fun. That's the main thing. Have fun. Don't give up. Do your best at marketing, which is something that we suck at over here at Sparky3. And I've openly acknowledged that, and just, like I said, just have fun. That's the main thing. You're just here to talk. You're here to have a good time. Don't take things super serious. That's a big thing that I should have mentioned in part 1 is be open to mistakes, embrace it, have fun with it. That's how you have stuff like what we have, where I have like the hand-drawn thing on the screen where it's like, sorry for tech probs, sub Ps when something happens. Like, mistakes are going to happen. Don't get super pissed off about it, and just embrace it, laugh at it, have fun with it, and just keep it moving. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Don't be super serious, but be serious enough. You know what I mean? Like, keep a professional feel as well as that lighthearted feel at the same time. Like, just don't get your own head up your own ass. You know what I mean? Like, you're just here to have fun. That's all it is. If you're starting off right out of the gate, this is a hobby for you. That is it. It is a hobby. It's a passion project. It is not your job. You may want it to become a job, but it's still not your job. Yes, work like I said that quote earlier. Work your ass off like an employee that wants promotion. Yes, but you just need to have that friendly reminder that, hey, this is just a hobby. So take breaks every once in a while. We schedule breaks here for all of our shows because, again, this is a hobby. We don't want to burn ourselves out. This is not our full-time job. We all work full-time jobs. We all have lives outside of the podcast, whether it be relationships or children or whatever, pets, personal interest, whatever the case is. We all have things we want to do outside the podcast, just like you will. So don't let it consume you. Even if you get the itch and you just love doing it, still take it in moderation. Don't overload yourself. And as I've said like 5 times now, just have fun. That's the main thing. I'd also really advise that properly scripting your show in some capacity, unless you really just want to turn on the mic and go. That can get some great content. Spark Bark is turn on the mic and go, but it's good to have a flow for your show. Learn good writing skills, essentially, if you don't already have it. I'm not the best writer. I'm okay. And try to plot the show out properly and, try different things. If it's okay to try different things like episode to episode, figure out what works for you, figure out what doesn't work for you. Figure out what works for your show, figure out what doesn't work for your show. It's okay. Try new things. It's all good. Just ultimately figure out what's going to work for you and keep on going and continue to adapt and evolve. Don't get too stuck in your ways. If you feel a little stagnant in terms of your growth, you feel a little stagnant personally, change it up. Do something different. Just keep an open mind and once again, have fun. That's the main thing, is have a good time. If anything in this video helped you out, please comment down below. Let me know. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me over at Twitter at AlexLight23. Check out all my shows, Game Static, MN Plus, Total Football Show, Spark Bark, talk about movies and stuff. And if you have any questions, definitely comment below, and I'll try to respond to them as I can. And until next time, guys, have a good one. See ya.